Today, Riot Games is one of the most recognizable and successful brands in gaming, with League of Legends now clocking in at over 125 million monthly active players, Valorant slowly chipping away at CSGO's tight grip on the FPS market, teamfight tactics making quite the comeback in popularity, and even recently, with an original show about the lore of their game going mainstream, it's not hard to see their success. But going back just 2 years, Riot Games was in a much different position. Under fire for poor working conditions, misconduct, and with their only game at the time steadily losing players and viewership. So how did they manage to pull off such a comeback? Well, while Riot Games might have seemingly been stagnant, coasting off the success of League, the entire time they were actually slowly developing their plan to take over not just gaming, but media as a whole. This is the story of how Riot Games plans to take over the gaming industry. Being founded in 2006, Riot Games had a much later start when compared to most in the industry. However, the founders Brandon Beck and Mark Merrill didn't let this fact sway them in the slightest. The two founders had just recently been playing a mod for Warcraft 3 called Dota, or Defense of the Ancients. It was gaining a lot of popularity at the time and was the most popular in the MOBA genre, but the founders wanted to take this idea and do something different with it. After raising $1.5 million from early investments, they launched their company and hired Steve Feek as their first employee. Feek had been one of the early developers of Dota, so having him on their team would be a very important first step in creating their game, due to his experience in the genre. The small team quickly got to work on creating their game, and sought more funding. However, this would turn out to be a struggling point for them, as the free-to-play, multiplayer game they were trying to create was not really popular among investors at the time. You see, from an investor's point of view, single-player games were simply seen as more lucrative at the time. If you were looking to create a multiplayer game at the time, it would not only have an initial cost, but also a recurring month-to-month policy for the multiplayer servers, like Xbox Live or World of Warcraft's monthly subscription. But Riot had a different approach. They wanted to release a free-to-play multiplayer experience with absolutely no obligation of a monthly cost. The goal from this would be to attract more players to their game, which would not only make their game more popular from the low barrier to entry, but also would serve an even greater purpose. This would be through cosmetics or in-game skins. The leaders at Riot were able to recognize the early success of games with cosmetic add-ons, and saw a greater opportunity with them. When you have a large community surrounding a game, people want a way to stand out from the crowd, like CSGO's marketplace of in-game items. It quickly became apparent to Riot that people would be willing to pay to look different from everyone else. This, combined with the low barrier to entry, made for a positive feedback loop, where entire friend groups would begin to play the game and purchase skins to show off to each other. Of course, this model would only work if they had a good game in the first place, which they delivered on. The game would be initially launched in October 27th of 2009, and while it was a buggy mess at the start, it was fun. And to improve their game, Riot did something else that was pretty unheard of in the industry at the time. They asked the players what they wanted. The early developers of the game went online to web forums to discuss with players what they actually wanted in the game, and then they used the best of those ideas and suggestions to tweak the game towards what the community actually wanted. In just a couple years, they had a fast-growing, fun, and addicting game. This didn't go unnoticed either. Less than 2 years after the initial launch, the Chinese holding company Tencent purchased a 93% stake in Riot Games for $400 million USD. The game would continue to do well under their new owners, explosively climbing the ranks until 2013, when it was named the most played multiplayer PC game in the world. And they didn't let this new success go to waste either, quickly making an esports scene around their game. However, Riot wanted to make their esports scene stand out from others. They did this in a number of ways throughout the years, but their first large move was creating the League Championship Series, or LCS. At the time, esports existed, but really only in third-party tournaments with small prize pools. Riot changed the entire scene by creating their own league for the games, similar to a sports league in 2013. This made playing in their league very sought after, with salaries for players and benefits. Playing League of Legends at a top level could be an actual job, and esports organizations started to become larger businesses that wouldn't go under after 1 year of bad performance. In addition to this, they offered ways for the best players to make it into the big leagues, by having the bottom 2 teams from their main league compete with the best 2 teams from the amateur league for the spots in LCS. This ended up delivering some of the best talent in the gaming world to their scene. This was just one of many steps in Riot's venture to legitimize their esports scene. In 2017, Riot franchised their North American esports scene by approaching the 10 teams currently in the LCS and offering a partnership between the two. For a large upfront cost, the teams would receive stability through the removal of the relegation process, a revenue split for the teams, a large increase to player salaries, a player association to protect the best talent, and much, much more. This would lead to a large influx of investors from more established sports scenes and celebrities, like the Golden State Warriors, Shaquille O'Neal, Will Smith, Michael Jordan, and even the rapper Drake. And there was good reason to be an investor at the time. The League of Legends 2019 World Championship was able to attract over 100 million viewers throughout the broadcast. And while it's hard to compare the two due to the medium of watching, this almost beats out the Super Bowl 2019 viewership of 100.7 million. After seemingly mastering everything possible when it came to League of Legends, they quietly set out on creating new games. There was a long-running joke about Riot Games being misnamed due to the fact that they really only produced one game. They would turn this idea on its head in late 2019 by first releasing Teamfight Tactics and Auto Battler, followed by some large announcements. Project A was their tactical character-based shooter, which would eventually become Valorant. Project F, an MMORPG that would take place in the world of League of Legends. Another project called Legends of Runeterra, which was a card game, a mobile version of League of Legends, and an all-new, large-budget animated series based in the League world. This would eventually become the wildly successful Arcane. These announcements seem to almost directly target another large player in the gaming world, Blizzard. Every one of these game announcements seemed to be a direct competitor to a game Blizzard had. From Legends of Runeterra targeting Hearthstone, or Valorant targeting Overwatch. Even the animated series announcement could be seen as competing with Blizzard's movie. But one announcement in particular seemed to be the most targeted: Riot's MMORPG. For a while now, Blizzard has remained a large player in the gaming world due to their cash cow of World of Warcraft. However, with Riot's announcement of a competing game, this might not be as stable for them moving forward. Of course, these announcements wouldn't mean much if they didn't create an actually good game, alongside some great marketing. In April of 2020, we were able to see the first glimpse of this coming to fruition, with both the card game, Legends of Runeterra, and Riot's FPS shooter, Valorant being released. The marketing strategy for releasing Valorant was something Riot employed extremely well. To start off, Riot released the game at a time when the first-person shooter community was looking for a new game. Counter-Strike Global Offensive had been slowly losing favor among its longtime fans due to the game's dated look and infrequent updates. Overwatch, on the other hand, had been doing much, much worse, losing professional players, viewership, and just casual players for quite some time. This was due to many balancing issues and a pretty lackluster pro scene, which was in large part due to the balancing issues as well. Professional players weren't having any fun playing due to a strict meta that revolved around tanks and healers. The second and even more important piece that allowed Valorant to explode in popularity was its closed beta. I'm putting closed beta in quotation marks here because it really was not even a closed beta. This was just a term Riot used to create more hype around their game. Starting in early April, certain streamers were given access to the game. people wanting to play the game could then earn a beta key from watching their stream. Riot announced the closed beta and key drop style as a way for them to test their servers with an increasing number of players over time. However, the truth of the matter was that Riot was used to handling servers with lots of players. They just wanted to build more hype. This was essentially a win-win-win for everyone involved, with of course a couple stipulations. The streamers would get more viewers due to the fact that people were watching for the chance of getting to play the game. Twitch, the streaming service, was able to get more viewers to their platform, and Riot got their game on top of Twitch with everyone wanting to play it. After just a few days, about everyone who wanted a key got one. And of course, the servers handled it completely fine. The result was Riot gaining another extremely popular game that they then built an esports scene around shortly after. Another thing that Riot did very well that ties into not only the success of their games, but in all media they create is their expansive universe and lore. League of Legends has always done a pretty solid job with giving backstories for all of their characters in their game, with snippets of lore available for all characters since their creation. But they took it even a step further. For just about as long as League of Legends has been out, Riot has released high-budget animated shorts for events and to bring more context to their world and characters. This, alongside a flourishing cosplay community, merchandise based on the champions, in-game events with prizes based around the lore, and even music releases and bands such as KDA, which consist of popular female characters from the game singing original songs produced by their team. Riot has been building their brand closer to that of a regular media conglomerate like Pokemon, Star Wars, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, rather than a video game company, and it's not hard to see why. The highest grossing media franchises are almost all long-lasting media groups that have built up their image over decades. However, scrolling down the list a bit, we start to see some more recent additions, including League of Legends coming in at spot number 41, only slightly behind Blizzard's Warcraft at number 38, which had a 15-year head start on League. More recently, Riot took a massive step into developing this further in late 2021 with the release of their animated series Arcane, consisting of a super compelling story featuring many characters from their game universe. They have managed to draw in not only older players that have stopped playing their games, but attracted a much wider audience of people that have never even heard of their game before, attracting more players to their game while also developing their lore for their future MMORPG release. It doesn't take a marketing expert to see how well Riot has set up their MMORPG with this series, while simultaneously creating an entertaining show. People have even been taking to forums and Reddit to predict what certain elements from the show will be featured in their games. This will help them tackle the seemingly unstoppable giant that is World of Warcraft. The series Arcane has already been renewed for another season, and Riot is working faster than ever to gain more of a market share in the world of not only PC gaming, but media as a whole. They seem to be repeatedly making calculated moves to slowly but surely take more and more of the growing market of gaming and media. And while we are unsure exactly where they will go next, it seems almost guaranteed that it will be successful. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of the video. This is my first video on this channel, so I'd really appreciate it if you guys would consider subscribing, leaving a like, or just some feedback down in the comments. If you have any suggestions for another video, I would also love to hear those. Thanks again for making it to the end of the video, and have a good one.